I remember the first days of our marriage like a warm dream. Sarah and I were inseparable. We met in college, both ambitious, both hungry for success. She was everything I wanted in a woman, smart, beautiful, and full of life. When we moved into our first house, it felt like the beginning of something great. We worked hard, built a life together, and for the first 5 years everything was good, very good. But time has a way of destroying everything. Long hours at work, stress, little things that once didn't matter began to eat away at us. We fought more, over money, over household chores, over things I hardly remember anymore. At first, I thought it was just a black streak that all couples go through. But then, one night, during a particularly heated argument, something changed. "You don't make me feel like a woman anymore," she spat, her eyes burning with something more than anger. "At least he does." And just like that, my world cracked. I stood there, frozen, and her words echoed in my head. "He wants to." "What the hell are you talking about?" My voice was quieter than I expected, almost calm, but something was breaking inside. She crossed her arms, her jaw clenched, but she didn't back down. "I met someone, and when I'm with him, I feel alive again." I wanted to laugh, to pretend that this was just another one of our fights that had gone too far. But the look in her eyes told me the truth. It wasn't just an empty threat. "How long?" I asked, my throat dry. She hesitated for a moment and then sighed. "A few months. A few months." While I was busting my ass at work trying to make our lives easier, she was looking for someone to make her feel alive. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. "And now what? Are you leaving?" She looked away. "I don't know." That was the worst part. She wasn't even sure if I should go or stay. A silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. My heart was pounding in my chest, my anger fighting with the disgusting feeling of betrayal. "You don't know," I repeated, my voice lowering. "You've been seeing this guy for months, and you don't know?" She ran a hand through her hair, exhaling sharply. "I didn't plan for this to happen." I laughed bitterly. "Yeah, that's what they all say." She flinched, but didn't argue. This amazed me even more. If she had struggled, if she had tried to justify it, maybe I could have told myself that it wasn't real. But she stood there, not denying it, not apologizing, just waiting for me to decide what to do next. "So what do you want, Sarah?" I asked. She hesitated. "I don't want to hurt you. It's too late for that." Then she looked at me, and for the first time I saw something like pity in her eyes. But pity was not enough. I needed the truth. "Do you love him?" She swallowed hard, then nodded. This nod hit me harder than a punch in the stomach. I felt the air leave my lungs and my hands trembled at my sides. "You love him," I repeated, more to myself than to her. The words seemed foreign, as if they belonged to someone else's life, not mine. She moved away uncomfortably. "I didn't mean for this to happen." I laughed. "Yeah, you said that already." Silence. She didn't even try to resist. Then I realized that she had already made her choice. Maybe she didn't want to admit it out loud, but deep down she knew. I ran my hand over my face, trying to come to my senses. "So what do you want to do now? Do you want a divorce?" She hesitated. I don't know." I clenched my jaw. "You can't not know, Sarah. You can't destroy our marriage and then pretend you're confused." Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't care. I was tired of being the one who cared more. "I need time," she whispered. I shook my head. "Take as much time as you want, but don't expect me to wait." Sarah wiped her eyes, but I didn't feel any sympathy. I didn't feel any more. For years, I tried to be a good husband, made sacrifices, put us first. And now she needs time? Time for what? To decide whether she should stay with me while she continues to see him on the side? I was not a fool. "I'll sleep in the guest room," she finally said, her voice quiet. I need space to think." I laughed dryly. "Space? You've already found your space in the arms of another man." She flinched, but said nothing. Perhaps she had nothing else to say. Without saying another word, I grabbed my keys and walked out. I needed air. I needed to be anywhere but near her. My hands were shaking as I got into the car, and my head was spinning. How did we get to this point? 5 years of marriage, just thrown away, as if nothing had happened. And for what? For some guy with whom she felt alive? I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles turning white. I wasn't just angry, I was determined. If she wanted to throw me out, she would soon find out that I wouldn't go down without a fight. I drove for hours, circling the city aimlessly while my mind raced. The betrayal burned deeply, but underneath it was something sharper, a sense of clarity. Sarah had already made her decision. She just didn't have the courage to say it out loud. And I wasn't going to sit around and wait for her to make a choice between him and me. By the time I turned into the driveway, my emotions had settled into something cold and controlled. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to get ready. When I went inside, the house was dark, except for the dim light in the hallway. Sarah was in the guest room, just like she said. I sat down at the kitchen table. And began to think about the next steps. The house, our savings, everything we had built together. I wasn't going to let her walk away with half of it while she played the victim. I knew the divorce laws well and realized that if I wasn't careful, she would take more than just my pride. She thought she had all the power. She was wrong. The next morning, I woke up with a clear mind. The shock was gone, replaced by cold determination. If Sarah wanted to leave, I would not stop her. But I wasn't going to let her walk away with everything I had worked for. She was already awake when I walked into the kitchen, sitting at the table with a cup of coffee. She looked tired, like she hadn't slept much. That was good. We need to talk, I said, keeping my voice even. She nodded, avoiding my gaze. I know. I sat down across from her. I'm not going to fight for a marriage you've already given up on. If you want to be with him, go. But we will do it my way. She looked up warily. What do you mean? I leaned back in my chair. No dirty court battles. No games. We divide everything fairly. Her lips tightened. I'm not trying to take anything from you. I almost laughed. She didn't have to say it, but I knew how it went. If I wasn't careful, I'd end up paying for her new life while she played housewife to him. I met her eyes. Then we put everything in writing. Her silence told me everything I needed to know. Sarah shifted in her seat, her fingers clutching her coffee cup. She looked nervous, unsure. Good. Do you really think I'm going to try to take advantage of you? She asked, her voice softer. I gave her a long, hard look. I think people do a lot of things when emotions get in the way. And I'm not going to take any chances. She sighed, rubbing her temples. I don't want to fight, Adam. Neither do I said. That's why I want everything in writing: who gets what, how we divide things, no surprises. She hesitated. What if I don't agree to everything you want? I leaned forward. Then we'll go to court. And believe me, Sarah, if it comes to that, I will fight. Her eyes widened slightly. Perhaps she expected me to be weak, to fall apart, to beg her to stay. She was wrong. She exhaled and looked away. It's okay. We'll figure it out. But I knew not to trust her words. It wasn't over yet, not by a long shot. The next few days were tense. We hardly spoke, and when we did, it was brief, forced, and distant. Sarah kept to herself, mostly staying in the guest room or leaving the house for long periods of time. I didn't ask where she went. I already knew. I spent my time preparing. I met with a lawyer, went over our finances, and made sure everything was documented. Every bank statement, every asset, every detail that could be used against me. I had it all prepared. If Sarah thought she could get away with half of everything after what she did, she was in for a rude awakening. One evening, she finally spoke about it. So what exactly do you want out of this deal? She asked cautiously. I did not hesitate. I keep the house. We share the savings, but you don't touch my pension fund. No alimony. Her expression hardened. Do you really think that's fair? I met her gaze, unwavering. Fairer than you deserve. She opened her mouth to object, but stopped. Perhaps she saw the determination in my eyes. I'll think about it, she mumbled. I smiled. Then do it. She had no idea that I was already 10 steps ahead of her. A week passed and Sarah became more and more restless. I could see it in the way she avoided eye contact, the way she hesitated before speaking. She knew she was losing control of the situation. One evening she finally snapped. Why are you acting like I'm the enemy? She asked. I laughed dryly. Because you're the enemy, Sarah. You betrayed me. You lied. And now you expect me to roll over and give you half my life? She clenched her fists. I never meant to hurt you. But you did. My voice was calm but firm. And now you don't get to decide how I deal with it. She exhaled sharply. I talked to a lawyer. I smiled. So have I. Uncertainty flashed in her eyes. She expected me to be a broken man, someone who would break down with guilt or sadness. But I wasn't playing that role. I was ready. You can argue with me about this, I said, standing up. But you won't win. She looked at me, and for the first time I saw real fear in her eyes. She finally realized that she had already lost.